Hi, so today you're actually going to see me. I'm hoping to experiment with this video format a little bit more in the future. So do let me know if this is something that you'd like me to continue doing. So anyway, today we're coming back to our interpretivism and positivism because I know that I have posted about it in my blog and on my Facebook page as well, but it seems to still cause some confusion. So in this short video I will briefly talk about positivism and interpretivism again, and most importantly I would like to tell you why you should stop worrying about it if you are worried. So why you should stop worrying about these ontologies and epistemologies and all kinds of things that are required of you if you're a student, are required of you to know. So firstly, let's go back to our interpretivism and positivism. So I'm sure that you have read about it. You have read perhaps some books or academic articles or just online sources where you probably see a lot of very similar descriptions of these two. So basically they will usually cite some not necessarily clear characteristics, so they are quite vague, sometimes saying that positivists see the reality as being objective, while interpretivists see this reality as being complex and subjective. And I do remember reading about it or hearing about it as a student, but I also do remember that well, it didn't really help to know that there are supposedly these two kinds of realities according to depending on who you are, an interpretivist or positivist, because what I really wanted to know is what does it mean in practice, in a real research context, research situation. What does it mean? So I will just try to explain and give some simple examples for this. So again, it is true that I guess we can generalize that that positivists see this reality as being external of our existence or objective. But what does it mean? So, for example, if you imagine investigating, it's a simple example just to demonstrate the differences. But if you imagine a positivist investigating a certain phenomenon, so or a feeling, let's say investigating happiness, I'm not sure that they would like to investigate such a vague idea as happiness in the first place, but as I said, just to give you an example, I can imagine that what a positivist would do in this situation perhaps would be to first try to understand happiness, ideally with very rigorous procedures and descriptions, so perhaps break it down into more elements or to understand what happiness consists of in the first place, so that we can apply this knowledge in a detailed detailed structured questionnaire where we can, for example, investigate all these different elements of happiness. So break it down, investigate these elements so that we can investigate patterns, correlations on our sample, our representative sample, so that in the end we can say that we have investigated happiness. We had a large sample, we followed all the procedures for this, and we designed our questionnaire very carefully because we had all these different elements of happiness. So so this has to be a valid study. But then an interpretivist, in this hypothetical situation, imagine having an interpretivist, and I imagine that he would not be very happy with what this positivist would be in fact very happy to have done, have achieved, because interpretivists wouldn't believe that that this choice of methods or this approach to research was right in the first place or suitable for this purpose. Because interpretivists do believe, as I said before, into this subjective reality. So what does it mean? So they believe that, for example, an issue such as happiness is a very, and many other issues or feelings, attitudes, phenomena, etc., are very subjective. So there is no single thing that exists there that's called happiness. So this is your objective and subjective reality. So unlike positivists who would say that there is this thing that exists there that you call happiness, and you have to know exactly what it is first, and then you can investigate it. The interpretivist would probably say that there is no single thing that you can that you call happiness that you can investigate with a questionnaire, because happiness or another feeling or state or existence or experience for this matter would be a very subjective issue. So to investigate happiness, we would have to ask different participants what this happiness means to them. Because how do you know what happiness is? How do I know when I design this questionnaire? How do I know that what this first participant believes happiness to mean is what the second participant and the third and the fourth and so on believe happiness to be? So we can't be sure that we have in fact investigated happiness, because everybody may believe, any person may have different beliefs about what happiness is in the first place. So rather than having this questionnaire, we would rather have an in-depth interview, for example, to investigate this issue. So this is kind of what I believe, how these differences would be evident in this hypothetical situation, and this kind of sums up the differences between interpretivism and positivism, because, as I said, it was a generalization, but generally positivists prefer to see the reality as a larger set of experiences or connections between the different elements of it, so between, for example, different people. So they see this large social reality that you can and you should investigate with investigating certain patterns within it or correlations, and using these scientific instruments and analytical tests and statistics and so on and so on. So this would be our positivism. And again, interpretivism would be more about the reality as something constructed by individuals and often co-constructed together. Again, I believe that the problem with what they say in these books is that they kind of give us this message that you have to in fact take it very literally, while you do not have to do this. So of course these people don't believe, so for example interpretivists don't believe that in fact there is no single reality, because it sounds it sounds like a science fiction movie or a Matrix, that there is no single reality and so on and so on, that you can't investigate it. So it's not really what they mean. What they mean is that, as I said, it's the reality or the experiences within this reality are very subjective. So this is pretty much this sums up this this worldview. So If you have more questions about these or other worldviews, I will be happy to answer these questions. But now, the point that I really wanted to make in this video is that if you worry about these things, you should well, stop worrying. Why? Because the fact is that if you're a student, after you graduate or decide to continue your career, you can be sure that you will not hear a lot about ontologies and epistemologies in your career, whether it's academic career, research career, or any other career. You're not going to hear a lot about it, because this is simply not something that people or researchers talk about on a daily basis. Well, unless of course they are teaching about it or writing an article specifically about philosophical assumptions. Otherwise, you're not going to see it in many academic articles, for example. When we're in the university, they ask us to they convey this message that, or that was my feeling, that epistemology and ontology are something that every researcher has to be very explicit about, and it's kind of a first thing that you have to consider before undertaking research. At least this is what I believed as a student, because this is kind of what it looks like from these books and from the structure of academic courses, for example. But the fact is that it's completely not true. It's not going to well, you're not going to have to be explicit about these beliefs. That's one thing, and secondly, it's not going to, these beliefs or ontologies or whatever you call them, they are not going to emerge a lot in your, or explicitly emerge in your, as I said, daily life or experience or career. So I'm not saying it's not important. It is important, but it's just like any kind of philosophy or worldview. Of course, you can't say that it's not important, because it will, in a way, it will determine your worldview or philosophical stance, will determine, of course, your beliefs about research, beliefs about what is important in research, what you want to investigate, how you want to investigate it. So it will implicitly be, in fact, the core of your research, of your work, but as I said, implicitly, so you're not going to talk about it openly. I, in fact, fully understood these things only a few years after I graduated. So when I looked back in my research, when I looked back at what I was talking about in my literature reviews, what kind of claims I was making in my studies, what kind of research questions I developed, then I kind of understood, and I could, I guess, imagine what somebody could say about my philosophical assumptions. But again, it was just this is how it happened, the order in which it happened. I conducted research, and then I looked back and I could understand, if I really wanted to, if I had a need to talk about my philosophical beliefs and assumptions, then I guess I could infer it from my studies. So, as I said, for example, research questions, you can infer this kind of information. If you're asking about participants' opinions, and so your research questions are something like, what do participants believe about this and that? This, I guess, if this was a part of academic assignment, to infer worldviews from these research questions, then it could be argued that it at least hints at some kind of interpretivist worldview, I guess, because you're asking about the participants' opinions. You're not asking, so if I was investigating identity, I'm not asking what is migrants or students' identity, but I was asking, for example, what do students believe about identity. So this is how it emerges. But apart from that, it's not going to happen a lot. This is my opinion. Somebody may criticize me for this, but from my own experience, I absolutely do not believe that this is that the way some universities seem to, or the message that they seem to convey is right. I think it's very confusing, and I think this is not how you should talk about these assumptions. So this is basically what I wanted to tell you in this video. As I said, not to worry about it. Of course, I know that if you're a student, you are required to show certain understanding of these issues. But apart from this, just bear in mind that it's definitely not going to, these ontologies and epistemologies are not going to stay with you throughout the rest of your career.